Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. Meh, he's okay. Guys, uh, today I want to do a special video on the astrology of astrologers. And why is it special? Well, because it's not about other stuff. It's about astrology. It's about astrologers. And frankly, it makes me a little bit nervous to think that perhaps this will attract the attention of astrologers, perhaps more than some of my other videos. And then, there are potentially some very good astrologers out there who might scrutinize my astrology, but oh well, that's the way it goes, I guess. In any case, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get right into it. I should preface this and say that what we're going to see a lot of is Scorpio, 8th house, Pluto, Uranus, Aquarius, 11th house, and Neptune, Pisces, 12th house. If you want to know what rules astrology, it's those three outer planets mainly. Jupiter will play in there, Mercury, even Saturn. All the planets play in actually, but the three real significators of astrology are primarily Uranus. Uranus is the main significator, then Pluto, because Pluto is very psychological and occultish, and then Neptune, because Neptune is very mystical, and they each rule slightly different aspects of astrology. Aquarius is the expansion into sort of like outer space, expanding the mind, very abstract thinking. Pluto's the deep diving one, very psychological, research oriented. And if you think about the nature, just briefly, I just got to explain this of each one. So, Uranus would be the ruler of Aquarius, which would be 11th house or co-ruler. And that would be the 12th from the 12th, right? If you count 12 places from the 12th house, you get Uranus, you get Aquarius. It's very high-minded, very abstract thinking, and very progressive, right? And Uranus really expands itself into space. Pluto, on the other hand, really digs deep, goes into psychology. One way you can see that is that if you look at the, first, second, third houses, or rather 12th, first, second house, the self houses, 12th house is the subconscious of the self, and it's the water house. But if you look at the subconscious of others, you get the 8th house. And that's why Pluto, Scorpio, 8th house is really interested in psychology, because now we're talking about the subconscious of other people. If you can get inside the subconscious of other people, you understand psychology. That's what it is, right? So that's why 8th house deals with that. 12th house is understanding your own psychology. But if you understand your own psychology, you can understand other people's psychology, right? If you understand your own subconscious, you can translate that into others. But 8th house, Scorpio, Pluto directly is about understanding other people's subconscious. And if you understand psychology, then you can understand how to manipulate people. That's Pluto in a nutshell, right? Manipulating, controlling other people, right? The psychology. Astrology is a great tool in understanding other people's psychology and understanding other people's subconscious mind, right? So we have those. Obviously, I already told you about Neptune, 12th house, subconscious, your own subconscious, your own psychology. And Neptune is a very all three have, like, Uranus has very powerful intuition, but it's more like a lightning bolt and rules Satori moments, right? Nirvana. Pluto is very deeply penetrating and pushes us to evolve, right? To grow, to transmute our energy into upward. That's the ideal. That's what it wants, right? Neptune is very mystical and spiritual and visionary and imaginary. So like you get like really very high level, profound, intuitive, mystical associations with Neptune potentially, right? Yeah, Pluto can also be very psychic as well, right? So anyway, they're a little bit different, but and the reason I have this one as a screenshot is because she specifically asked me not to show her birth details. But this is Carmen Turner Scott. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. I apologize. But she's an astrologer, contemporary astrologer, and she specifically deals with 8th house and 12th house issues, because well, she has them in her chart, but that's her interest, and she's written books about those topics, and she has Facebook groups along those same topics: 12th house, 8th house, that sort of thing. Pluto, Scorpio, Pisces. All right. So she's got a Virgo ascendant, Sun, Venus, Mercury in Virgo, so very sharp. Sun and Venus are in the 12th, first whole sign house. So I mean, not part. Depends how you want to call it. If it's in the same sign as the cusp of the following house, I like to think of it, especially if it's within 15 degrees. I mean, there's a Vedic principle that you look at 15 degrees either side of the cusp, it belongs to that side, that house, as long as it's in the same sign. I believe that's the rule. I'm not sure. Maybe they go outside the sign. I can't remember. But anyway, 10 to 15 degrees of a cusp definitely influencing that house. So it's 12th, yeah, but still influencing the ascendant, right? Venus is not good in Virgo. It's retrograde and it's combust the sun. So this person probably, especially when young, was very self-critical, being a woman, right? Venus in Virgo is very critical. Retrograde, it's really turned back on the self. And then if they're a woman, then they're really hard on themselves, really hard on their bodies. That burns out eventually as the person matures. You just can't do that kind of thing forever. I mean, I guess some people could, but not really, not ideally. Anyway, 8th house planets, right? We're looking for astrology. I'm not trying to break down the whole chart and give you a detailed analysis of everything. We're just looking for astrology here. 8th house, obviously, right? Moon, Jupiter. Moon, Jupiter is a great combination. Very lovable, very powerful. Moon is Jupiter's ruler of its sign of exaltation, right? Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, Moon rules Cancer, obviously. Right? Neutral dignity in Aries, but Jupiter makes Moon happier, more abundant, because Jupiter expands. So this is like a generous moon, a lovable moon, a loving moon, a benefic moon, right? Because Jupiter is bringing all this good qualities to the moon and the heart. So these people tend to be, very talented in the area and sign, the house and sign that skilled, gifted, benevolent, benefic, in a way that people love. Like you see a lot of artists and musicians with this combination because they produce things that people really love. It's the Moon Jupiter combination. It really lends well to that. A very lovable combination. So let's see, a lot of Virgo, so very analytical. Technically Pluto's in the first house, so that would contribute to the astrological influence, at least the psychological aspect of it. Let's see, Uranus is the main significator, and that is kind of opposite the Moon Jupiter. Jupiter's ruling the 7th and the 4th in the 8th. So from early on, she was going into 8th house things, 8th house themes, secrets, occult, astrology. 7th and 8th means that, like, I have this also for like clients or people she meet, she's going to talk about astrology with them because they're going to come to her and it's going to go right into the 8th house, which is like deep intimacy. She's always like, hey, how are you doing? Let's talk about astrology. I don't know her personally, but I'm like, because I know this combination and it's Jupiter. So she's been like, very Jupiter, like teaching about astrology, right? Wisdom, astro wisdom from the heart. And she does that. She's very heartfelt. So like Uranus has an opposition to Jupiter and Moon, right? So Uranus is the main significator of astrology. Neptune is conjunct the IC. So Neptune again, and that's opposition to Mars. Mars ruling the 3rd. So that's actually good for writing, this combination. 3rd Lord conjunct the MC, right? Gemini, especially. North Node in Scorpio. That's very prominent for North Node in the third house in Scorpio, right? So astrology writing astrology. That's what she does. It's one of the things she does. This is not great. Detrimental Saturn in detriment in Cancer, square the moon, square Jupiter. Actually, Jupiter and moon are dignifying the Saturn, but the Saturn is not dignifying this Aries sign because it does not do well in Aries. So bad for moon and Jupiter, actually, this Saturn here. But that is, that's something that's fifth and sixth house. So issues around that, but that's not really related to what we're talking about. I'm just pointing it out. Let's see here. Moon Mercury in conjunct. Difficulties in expressing her heart, I would guess. That is, but also not related to, well, actually, in fact, the in conjunct is an eighth aspect, right? Because if you take the ascendant, you go in conjunct, you have the eighth house. That's essentially what gives it that difficult quality. Sixth house as well. So exalted Mercury to conjunct moon shows that there's like actually an eighth house relationship between Mercury and moon, and that's good. You do have to dig a little bit deeper in the eighth house to get things it's sort of like mining for gold, but definitely you can get there, and that represents the in conjunct, that the sort of challenge in digging up the treasure, the secrets of the eighth house. There's a T-square between Saturn and Uranus and Jupiter. I mean, it's a little wide, but it's still there. That's actually interesting. I have that as well. That's very rebellious. These are not retrograde, so not as rebellious as it could be, but Uranus, Saturn do have an Aquarian feel together. Puts a lot of stress on this Saturn. So this T-square. But very rebellious, and certain authority figures, mostly went from her youth or education, and then her work were probably very dominant and overly emotional in their power structures, but that's another story. But anyway, we get the astrology from, I mean, first of all, very analytical, but like, tapping into the secrets with Sun and Venus here, 12th house, and then Moon, Jupiter, and Chiron. Can't ignore Chiron in the 8th house. Chiron was a teacher and a wise person, and a weird being. In any case, let's keep going. Backs out of here. For the rest, I'm just going to do the normal. All right. Zed Keel is an astrologer, and he was born Richard James Morrison in 1795, and he chose the pseudonym of Zed Keel. He served in the Royal Navy, but resigned with the rank of lieutenant. He then devoted himself to study astrology, and in 1831 issued the Herald of Astrology, subsequently known as Zed Keel's Almanac. He published predictions of the chief events for the coming year. He also wrote other books. All right. Again, Virgo ascendant, very analytical and critical. With Uranus almost conjunct the ascendant, but it's at the 29th anaretic degree of Leo, along with not too far from Chiron, conjunct Chiron. So it's about to move into Virgo and totally conjunct the ascendant. But as it is, it's still in the 12th, and that's still significant. Let's see. Mercury's in Cancer, Sun and Mars in Gemini. Jupiter is ruling the 8th house cusp, and there's South Node conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius, right? Again, we have the anaretic degree here. And then Jupiter and then Pluto, both in Aquarius in the 6th house. So this is very academic. And this is if you're talking about something like a regular publication, the almanac would definitely fall into a 6th house category, right? So Aquarius, Jupiter, Pluto, Jupiter ruling the 8th cusp and the 7th in the 6th definitely points to almanac, right? Especially with Aquarius having that Uranian vibe to it. They're both retrograde too, which would make it even very unique. Very unique. Venus conjunct the MC exactly in domicile in Taurus. So that's quite interesting. Let's see. Neptune in Scorpio in the 3rd house. So for writing books, so Venus is the 3rd lord, conjunct the MC in domicile. So also for writing books, very prominent, very strong, right? North node conjunct the 12th house cusp in Cancer. 12th lord moon conjunct Saturn. So taking these hidden secret crystal, taking the secrets of the 12th house and crystallizing them, and Gemini for books, so like writing about that. And then obviously Mars would be the whole sign 8th lord, and that's conjunct the sun. So there we have that on the 11th house in Gemini. So a lot of Gemini for writing, 3rd house, Scorpio, Aquarius, Pluto, Jupiter. So that's really interesting. Why the Navy? Let's see. Well, Sun, Mars, and then Pluto, very close to the descendant. Pluto is very strategic and battle ready, because it loves to mastermind and fight for it's not a physical fighter like Mars, but it will be the sort of brains behind the fight. Let's see here. Uranus has a in conjunct to South Node exact, and that's interesting actually, because that's an 8th house aspect, 6th 8th, right? Uranus is actually 8th from the South Node, so that is interesting, right? It probably does have an influence. Let's see. Moon square ascendant, Chiron square Venus. Anyway, not really related. Chiron, by the way, was also an astrologer, so that might play a role in some people as well. Yeah. Moon Jupiter trine, Saturn Jupiter trine. That's also Saturn and Jupiter is very good for like high level like scientific philosophy, right? More like academic philosophy. Stephen Arroyo, he is a well-known astrologer. Let's see here. Author of 8 books on psychologically oriented astrology, and is one of the best-selling authors in modern astrology books worldwide. Background in math, arts, literature, master's degree in psychology. He's developed a system that emphasizes individual experience of the solar system, dynamic impact on the human energy field, both psychological and physical, explicitly rejecting fatalism and negativity of old-fashioned astrology. All right. Well, I'm not going to read all of it, but anyway. Aries ascendant, so obviously loaded 7th house Libra, and then 8th house Jupiter, Mars, and domicile Venus. One thing interesting is that if the ascendant lord is in the 7th house, it's automatically in poor dignity, unless you have like a sign change, right? But if it's in the opposite sign, it's in poor dignity, right? And then so this describes relationships. Relationships are in poor dignity. When the ascendant lord is in the 7th house, opposite the sign of the ascendant rising sign, What happens is that this planet will either hurt people or help people because it's defining the nature of the relationship. So poor dignity relationships mean either he's creating poor dignity relationships, meaning he's hurting people, or he has poor dignity relationships, meaning people who are undignified, meaning sick or weak or some way lacking dignity, are coming to him and he's helping them. And that's the latter. I mean, I don't think he was hurting people. I think he was helping people. And this is a strong indicator of somebody who's a counselor. On the other hand, it could be also somebody who's a fighter or a criminal, right? In this case, a counselor. So this comes from my experience of observation. I've seen it again and again and again. This is yeah, very accurate. So he's got Sun conjunct Neptune. So first of all, one indicator, because Neptune is the outer planet. All three outer planets are rule astrology, according to me, anyway. Mars in domicile in the 8th house, well, along with Jupiter and Venus. So Mars is his ascendant lord. So he's going right into the 8th house, good dignity. And then Jupiter here is making bonifying that, dignifying that. It's within 3 degrees of the cusp. Venus, not in great dignity, but it does show that he loves the topic, the themes of the 8th house, right? And other things, but that as well. And then North Node conjunct Uranus in the 3rd house. So writing books, for sure. Uranus, astrology, very much so. Moon in Aquarius in the 11th house. I also have my moon in the 11th in Virgo, but this is very much also translated to astrology. And then Pluto, Saturn, where Saturn's not in great dignity in Leo. I have my Saturn in Leo, but that's the MC Lord and 11th house Lord conjunct Pluto in the 5th house. So for education and entertainment, right? That's very good. You know, Pluto being the psychological, you know, career in psychology, MC Lord conjunct Pluto in the 5th house, general education. Trine the ascendant. Okay. Moon has a square to Neptune, so that's still a contact, not an easy one. Perhaps make him a little bit delusional at times. You know, also conjunct the sun. I have my sun opposite Neptune, along with Venus opposite Neptune, so I understand that. But like I said, Neptune does have that it can create a lot of delusions, but also tremendous kind of sublime wisdom, almost like Jupiter, but like even more refined. If it's you know, healthy, if the person is utilizing it to its full potential, right? Okay. In any case, Mars is exactly in conjunct the ascendant. That is an 8th house aspect. That in conjunct 6th or 8th, depending. We got a Venus square moon. That's not very good. That's not very good for Venus because it's got the square to the moon, and moon does not do well in Scorpio, neither does Venus. So and this relationship, so his relationships might suffer, in fact. If 7th, well, a couple things. Especially if the planet's in poor dignity. First of all, natural counselor, Mercury's in the 7th, same as me, Sun's in the 7th, Chiron's in the 7th. I also have Chiron in the 7th. Chiron in the 7th, by the way, shows very strange relationships, right? Chiron conjunct Mercury would show a strange way of communicating. But Chiron is a teacher, healer, astrologer. And the wounds come from the fact that Chiron is so strange, by the way. It's not necessarily wounded. Chiron isn't always wounded, just to reiterate that point. People would automatically think wounds when they think Chiron. That's not the case. Chiron can create wounds. It can create psychological damage because it's so weird and strange. Imagine if you're like, you know, you have some deformity, some weirdness, and you're always being teased about it. Well, that's going to cause some issues. What was I saying? 7th Lord in the 8th house, particularly difficult, can cause the loss of a partner, the death of a partner. Not always, but it may. right? And Venus square moon shows that the things that he loves don't necessarily make him happy, or there could be some kind of conflict. The Venus indulgence will be in, conflict with the moon. But the square is not so bad. It just kind of makes you work harder to achieve that connection. So it's all right. All righty. But this Venus is damaged. So I imagine some of his relationships are very difficult, very painful. Also, some financial issues. Anyway. Helped by Mars, though, I gotta say, and Jupiter. But this is the seventh lord in the eighth house, also great combination for astrology, because you meet somebody and automatically you're going into the eighth house, into the secrets of astrology and the occult. Check the dignities. Venus is out of bounds. Uranus is retro. I wonder how slow that is. Check that. 9 days. It's okay. All right, let's keep going. Chris Brennan, young guy, but very well known in the astrology world. Wrote a very popular book and has a very popular podcast. Aquarius ascendant with Moon in the first, and Moon's ruling the sixth, so very academic, daily grind. And for somebody who does like a regular podcast, that's very, very good, because that's the sixth house, is that regular sort of periodic, magazines, TV shows, podcasts, regular kind of things right in the first house. Right. Aquarius for that, the 11th house, Uranian influence. Then then a Scorpio stellium with Sun conjunct Pluto and Scorpio, Saturn, Mercury, South Node, 9th house. Some people say, especially classical astrologers, they say to look for an astrologer, look to the 9th house, especially the third triplicity lord. I was checking that out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not attracted to that style, and I think a much more accurate way to see it is the outer planets in those houses. I think that's really consistent. Otherwise, you're getting very abstract, and it doesn't really add up. It sounds nice. You sound like a really smarty pants when you're like, well, in order to check for if somebody's going to be a good astrologer, look for the third triplicity lord of the 9th house. Right? Sounds like you're really intelligent, but if it doesn't work, like you're just an idiot for repeating nonsense. So, and it doesn't always work. Other people say that in order to check for astrology, look for the 9th house to somehow connect to Mercury, because then Mercury will intellectually resolve life's philosophical issues, and we do that through astrology. That's also nonsense. It does work sometimes, most of the time not. Here it doesn't, right? There's no connection to, well, Mercury. Okay, so I'm wrong on this chart, but we'll find others that it doesn't work. Anyway, Mars in Capricorn, Jupiter is in Capricorn. It's funny when I say something and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm wrong. South Node Mercury, right? So yeah, but this is the 10th whole sign house. Anyway, Venus conjunct Uranus, also a love of Uranian things, which would include astrology in the 10th house. Uranus in the 10th house, also an indicator of an astrologer. Neptune also in the 10th house. Well, Neptune conjunct the 11th house cusp, but I'm concerned about this Jupiter. It's not very good with this very strong Mars here. Jupiter is ruling the MC and the 2nd house. So there could be issues around that. It's also in semi-square with the moon. So there's some issues around this Jupiter. Mars is in great dignity. Mars will help it, but it could also hurt it. In any case, Jupiter's pretty tough, so may not be that bad. But finances, self-worth, those sort of things, or some sort of group community issues, or public image. Anyway, everything's direct except for Chiron and the nodes of Saturn and Mars, mutual reception. Right. They are within degrees also. That's interesting. That's not ruling, there's no cusp here. But that's the 10th whole sign house, 9th quadrant. So depending on how you want to look at it, 9th or 10th, and the 12th cusp. So philosophy and career and hidden secret things, trading places. So that's all very interesting. Mars is the third lord, so for writing and communicating, that's gonna be strong. Chiron conjunct the MC in Gemini retrograde. Could show difficulty like when young, like being a reject or an outcast or weird, nerdy, that sort of thing. There's no hard aspects on it, but it is retrograde, so definitely, and it is Gemini, so definitely a certain kind of nerdiness there. Plus South Node Mercury, real heady type, and it's very much Chris Brennan if you ever listen to him. All right. Michael Erlewine. So this guy, born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, not too far from me. That's where I went to college. Musician, astrologer, internet entrepreneur, founded the All Music Guide. Erlewine has had several careers as a musician, blah, blah, blah. He hitchhiked with Bob Dylan. All right. So he was obviously a hippie. Blues band. Okay, then he became an astrologer. All right. I think he wrote some books. All right. Ascendant Lord in the 7th house, right? Jupiter and poor dignity in the 7th. So this guy's obviously going to be a counselor. Like, doesn't sound like a fighter or criminal or anything like that. So a counselor, a helper, helping people, teaching people, attracting people who need help and teaching them. Jupiter, Gemini, communicate. All right. Saturn and Uranus and Moon in Virgo in the 6th. And then Moon is trine the North Node, the MC, and Neptune. So that's going to, not particularly. That's you could look at music, especially Uranus has Uranus also relates to music. Neptune relates more to art and film. Uranus definitely relates to music. So you can see when Uranus changes sign, the music changes and the style changes. Uranus rules fashion. Neptune also rules fashion, but Uranus rules like hair and looks and things like that, as does Neptune. But Pluto rules power structures more. But in any case, it's kind of a tangent. Mercury is moving into the 8th house, right? In Cancer. Sun is clearly in the 8th house. Pluto is exactly conjunct Chiron in the 8th house. So we're getting a lot of 8th house influence here. Venus is in the 9th. And there is some 9th house influence in astrology, but astrology is more 8th house because secrets, right? We're not talking about God. Here's the thing. Why is astrology not 9th house? Because you can have like 100 different astrologers who might completely agree about astrology, but then you bring up God, religion, they're all going to have different ideas. Astrology is not a 9th house thing. I will state that firmly. I know I'm stating it like it's like a fact, but it's my opinion. But I'm very confident that astrology is not a 9th house thing. These just classical astrologers, they're way too heady and abstract. They're not feeling it. A lot of them. They're just doing it by book. They're like, okay, it says here astrology is 9th house. It says in the old book. It's 500 years old, must be true. 500-year-old dude said it. Well, guess what? People who 500 years ago were also stupid, right? They write a book 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. It could be just as stupid as anyone writing a book today. So just because it's old doesn't make it true. And that's one of the faults of classical astrologers. Heard it from me, I'm firm. So take that to Take that to the bank. Anyway, Mars and Aries in the 4th. Let's see, that's 12th house Scorpio in the 4th in Aries. So that's in good dignity. 5th whole sign house. In any case, we can see that he likes to counsel people with Jupiter and Gemini in poor dignity in the 7th. Like he attracts weak people and wants to help them. And then 7th Lord is in technically the 7th quadrant, but 8th whole sign house. So again, right, bringing people into that 8th house realm. He's obviously very musical, right? Saturn and Uranus together has an Aquarian vibe. Uranus is going to manifest more clearly the Uranian expansive vision, the expansive, because Uranus can have so many ideas, but the grounding is the problem. Actually, Saturn can help ground it, so can Taurus, right? So can Moon, for that matter. The Moon can be very physical. So this is sort of not a terrible combination of bringing the brilliance of Uranus into the physical reality. Moon and Saturn are not great together. It's sort of almost like a Capricornian moon. It really restricts Moon, but it is in Taurus. So Moon seems, mixed here. Trying the MC, let's keep going. A lot of nice trines going on here. Sun, South Node, Mars, Ascendant. Everything's direct except for the nodes. So that's interesting. North Node conjunct the MC and Neptune. Very creative career. But Neptune's in Virgo, opposite 4th. So interesting. It would do better early on. Early on, he would be much more creative because South Node in Pisces, Neptune influencing that. So that's music. Later, he's becoming more heady, intellectual. So that's probably why he switched to astrology, because you need that analysis. Astrology is all charts. It's all charts. Some people are more bookish. They'll read books and they'll be like, oh, this is real astrology, just reading books and writing articles about the stuff I read in books. But really, astrology is looking at charts. Let's keep going. Stephen Forrest, another very well known astrologer, wrote tons of books and stuff like that. America's astrologer writer, The Inner Sky, The Changing Sky, The Night Speaks, The Book of Pluto. His wife Jodie Forrest is also an astrologer. All right. Stephen Forrest, he's got that hair, kind of looks like an old hippie. All right, Scorpio ascendant, very natural for an astrologer. Same as me. South Node in Scorpio. Chiron in the 1st, right? Weird. And this fits him. Like, he does have a weird look about him. He's a little bit weird. And it's not a bad thing. Everyone has a Chiron. I got on the descendant, so it's not a criticism. It's just an observation. He's a little weird. That's okay, right? I'm not saying it like a bad thing. It's a thing, though. Sun conjunct Jupiter in Capricorn, not great for Jupiter. Mercury and Mars in Aquarius. Mars just left Capricorn, so it just went out of dignity, out of exaltation, rather. But Mars is basically conjunct the 3rd cusp, right? These are in the 2nd house, so 3rd whole sign house, though. However, but 2nd, 3rd, so like speaking, teaching, 2nd house. Yeah. So Mercury is the 8th lord. Uranus is conjunct the 8th cusp in Gemini, which is brilliant. We're about to see Uranus in Gemini again in 2025. Can't wait for that. It's gonna be great. But Mercury is ruling the 8th cusp. That's conjunct his sun. And Mars, essentially, even though it's out of sign, but so that's going to influence his personality. Look at this in conjunct between Sun, Pluto. Pluto, obviously, 8th from the sun. If you drew up a sun chart, Pluto would be on the 8th cusp, right about, because that's what the nature of the inconjunct, right? So very strong influence of Pluto, psychology, astrology, really penetrating other people's subconscious minds to understand them better than they understand themselves. That's really the nature of astrology, understanding people better than they understand themselves. Fortunately, hopefully, we can understand ourselves better than we understood ourselves before. Mars is square the nodes. I have Mars square the nodes. It's my ascendant lord. It's also his ascendant lord. Fascinating. Conjunct the third house cusp. So in Aquarius. So writing about astrology for sure. There's a lot of tension when a planet is square the nodes. And if it's the ascendant lord, it's the person themselves becomes very tense and they're driven, motivated. Squares make you work hard, right? And Mars is actually dignifying the south node, not the north node. So when he was younger, it shows early success, also activating the astrology, activating the astrological urge in him, the drive, right? Because Mars exalting, Mars dignifying the south node, Mars in the conjunct the third cusp in Aquarius, right? So that's already activating the astrological impulse when he was young. Saturn square Chiron, that's got to be painful. That's got to be show issues with being different, being an outcast, and authorities in high places, especially academic authorities. Probably made him feel very bad about himself, subconscious, especially when young. But Saturn conjunct the MC shows that he himself will be an authority, especially as he gets older. The way the planets work is that we project them externally until we can embody them. Whether it's a difficult aspect or a powerful planet in a powerful place, it's going to be projected outward until it can be embodied. This is not obviously not his ascendant lord, so it's not him. If it's the ascendant lord, it's a little different because then you're automatically embodying that planet. But Saturn is ruling the it's ruling the third whole sign house and the third cusp. So third lord, right? So for writing, Virgo, definitely. Very, very strong. Pluto in the ninth, that's good. Neptune square the sun, so whoa, very spacey, dreamy, visionary, but can definitely be heightened in intuition and the very high level wisdom, right? Especially as it gets older. With age, all these aspects are going to soften and harmonize much more. So like with difficult when young, when as they age, then it's going to be much easier, right? And even the Chiron square Saturn, that's going to be much better as he gets older. Neptune square the sun, illusion, delusion, fantasy, drug, alcohol potential, but then the very mystical as the person learns to integrate these aspects. Saturn and Uranus retro. Saturn retro would tend to be not very doesn't want to follow along with authority, doesn't want to go along with authority, doesn't watch CNN and be like, okay, they're telling the truth, my government loves me. Uranus retro is even more rebellious than Uranus prograde, if you can believe that. And Pluto retro, I mean, there's something very, very deeply going against the grain, nonconformist about Pluto retrograde. It's a bit more abstract. Demetra George. She wrote many books. Classical astrologer, Astrology, Mystery of the Dark Moon, Find Her Way Through the Dark. That's not all her books. She wrote one of them on classical astrology. She helped bring classical astrology back to life. But here very clearly, North Node conjunct Uranus in Gemini and the Moon in the 11th house. So career success, groups, networks, popularity, right? 11th house also original home of Aquarius. So for social thinking and higher mind, abstract thinking, very strong, very prominent. Leo stellium, I guess if you're considered, it doesn't matter, but if you consider the ascendant as part of it. Anyway, Leo sun, Pluto, Mercury, ascendant in Leo. Saturn in the 12th in Cancer, fully in the 12th, right? These are 12th first. And Mercury is the 11th lord, Sun first lord. Mercury is also the second lord, so speaking, whatnot. Venus and Mars in Virgo. Venus is not very good. It's the second house, so that's interesting. Not well, Venus is the MC Lord. So academic career of speaking and knowledge, resource. Second house also can do with history, and part of one of the things she did was a lot of research, bringing back classical astrology. Chiron conjunct Jupiter in the third house. So Jupiter is the eighth lord in the third house, so writing about eighth house topics. Pisces, astrology is obviously one of those. Chiron does relate. There's the trine to North Node in Uranus and Moon, which is very good. Neptune also in the second, moving to the third. So her main thing is like writing and speaking, obviously. And then the topic she chose is astrology. Yeah, research, 12th house is that the secret hidden things. Second house also for history, knowledge, and speaking. Mercury retro. Everything is direct, even and the nodes are stationed. If the nodes are stationed, I'm not sure. I heard that the nodes direct is a lucky thing. I have nodes direct, but they're very slow. They're almost stationed. But it shows an easier it shows a direct path towards one's destiny, I think. Anyway, I'm not sure. That's what some people say, but I'm still observing. I don't buy anything unless I can directly observe it. And if I directly observe it and it's not mentioned anywhere, I am more sure of my observation than it not being mentioned anywhere. In any case. Mercury's retro, 11th and second house rulership in the first, basically. So definitely somebody, a retrograde planet influencing the ascendant will show somebody who's just very unconventional and does not want to abide by the normal rules of society, which if you're going to be an astrologer, that's pretty much kind of a given. Although not all astrologers embody that very well. Gary Goldschneider. He's an astrologer born in Philly. That's where I live. That's where I was born. Pianist, author, astrologer, collaborated, and then wrote books. Okay. All right. Sag ascendant, Jupiter's in Aries in the fourth. Moon in Cancer and Pluto. Moon, Pluto in the eighth. Right, very strong here. Six, a lot of Taurus. So there's going to be different influences. Let's see, Venus is the MC Lord. Venus is in domicile in the sixth, conjunct South Node in Taurus. So that's going to be very musical. But Mercury is conjunct Uranus. So. So yeah, music, pianist. I forgot what he was. So American Dutch composer, pianist, author, and astrologer. Okay. So obviously the Taurus is bringing out the music. Mars and Capricorn in the second house. That's opposite Pluto. That's very strong. It's very aggressive, but let's see. Mars is in the second, exalted. So for speaking, that could be quite good. Also for if he was interested in, I don't know if he sang, but that would be a thing. A bit of a raspy voice, I would imagine, with Mars and Capricorn. Powerful though. Let's see. So Mars ruling the 12th. So North Node in Scorpio. So obviously, early on, he's more into arts and music. Then he goes into astrology. right? 11th house, Scorpio. And that's activating the Mars. Right. So that's the connection. It's ruling the 12th cusp, but a lot of it's in the 11th house. And then Moon and Pluto in the 8th, opposite Mars. When North Node, second half of life, North Node's activating the Mars and activating this axis, Pluto Mars. Yeah, Pluto obviously can stand up to a very strong Mars. So it's not, if Moon was here or Sun was here or another planet, Venus, that would be very damaging. But Pluto, not so much. Pluto can stand up to Mars. Alrighty. It's got a lot of nice trines. Neptune's in Virgo in the 9th retrograde. Definitely some unusual philosophies, philosophical type stuff. I think that's it. All that I can talk about it in relation to astrology in regards to this. Mars and Saturn. Yeah, Mars Saturn mutual reception. So that's second and fifth, essentially, because it's in the fifth, on the fifth cusp. Second and fifth, Lord exchange could be about teaching kids or speculative investments. It could be very creative as well, because the arts, anyway. That's gonna help. That's gonna help his everything in general. Let's keep going. Jeffrey Wolf Green. Jeff Green was the what kind of astrology? I can't hear. I'm drawing a blank. Some kind of modern astrology. Evolutionary astrology. All right. He's got Jupiter conjunct the ascendant Scorpio, Scorpio ascendant Venus, Mercury, obviously Chiron, very much a teacher of the secrets, the hidden occult secrets. Then he's got North Node conjunct Uranus in Gemini in the 8th. Again, can't wait for Uranus to go into Gemini. It's going to be great. It's very strong, right? Pluto, Saturn, Leo, 10th whole sign house, MC, conjunct the MC, right? It's very clearly influencing his career, right? Yeah, you could say maybe so 9th house, higher studies. Pluto and Saturn, very serious. Saturn's going to crystallize that plutonic obsession, the psychological, it make it very hard nosed, very scientific, very tangible, right? In Leo, Saturn, Leo, Pluto and Leo, this is the ego is out of control. And he did have a chip on his shoulder. I mean, come on, if you knew him, not knew him, if you listened to him, like he was angry about stuff, whether justified or not, he was. But very philosophical. Second house, South Node, Sun, South Node, Mars. South Node conjunct the Sun also is going to show somebody who just wants to walk away from the world in life, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to go be alone in the monastery, something, but he became an astrologer instead. South Node Mars, these people know how to fight. They don't want to, but they know how. Mars square Moon, that's not very good, but Moon's not, the dignities are not affected on either side. That's where you get the really worst hard aspects. But Mars square Moon definitely shows some. Mars is ascendant lord, and if it's square the Moon, that shows somebody who's essentially has issues, right? Mental issues. Moon in Pisces, though, trying the ascendant, trying Venus, Jupiter, even Mercury. That's quite good. Jupiter ruling Pisces, that's dignifying this Moon, but Moon does not really do well in Scorpio, so there is issues. Not as happy as he could be. That's very obvious. Neptune in the 11th, also very good for that high-minded, abstract kind of thinking that's necessary for astrology, intuition, even yes, psychic. I mean, especially with this northern Uranus in the 8th, that's going to be very sad. This is a little bit Chiron, Jupiter, Scorpio, all that. Definitely going to have a very intuitive kind of feel to it. And then also 8th Lord in the 1st in Scorpio, right? 11th Lord in the 1st in Scorpio. I like listening to Jeff Green. I think he's really smart and very good at what he does. Jupiter, Mars, mutual reception. Yeah, Jupiter, Mars. And that's not out of dignity either. So 1st, 2nd. So he's a very natural teacher. Not only Jupiter in the 1st, but 1st and 2nd Lord switching places, right? So just teaching, it's just completely natural to him. And that's what he did a lot of. Moon is also square Uranus, so he was not very happy. Yeah, one thing I don't like is this kind of unhappiness that he kind of, is always presenting in his talks, and then he goes on and on about the patriarchy, and it's a lot. It's not, it's bad enough that he's like the patriarchy this, the patriarchy that. The patriarchy is, it's just, it sets up this whole really ridiculous victim and oppressor kind of mindset, which is very unhealthy and inaccurate. Everyone was complicit. It's just culture. Culture moves in waves. It goes this way, it goes that way. But when you're blaming the past, saying like a certain group is responsible for the way things were, that's nonsense. If you know astrology, then you don't need to blame white men for blah blah blah, like all this liberal bullshit crap, like where you're just like a whiny little bitch. All these people, white men are there, like it's just it's unhealthy. It's mental illness, is what I'm trying to say, right? So do not, teach your so-called wisdom with a healthy dose of mental illness. Blaming all the past on the men, the patriarch. It's like, shut up. That's dumb. It's stupid, and it's wrong. Everyone was complicit. Everyone was part of that game. The women, if the women have power to change it now, they had power to change it then. They didn't want to. That was their thing. They were okay with it. It was everyone. And that's the way things go, right? We had royalty at one time. We had slaves at one time, right? That's the way things go. It's part of growing up. We don't blame the past. We don't blame our younger selves for being dumb, right? We can regret it, but it's stupid. It's foolish. You're like, oh, I'm gonna beat myself up for how awful I don't. You're just creating more damage. Anyway, that's my little soapbox about Jeff Green. Liz Green, not related, but born during the same time. I think the same year as because the Pluto, Saturn in Leo, and that's a difficult combination. Very, very egotistical and very, very serious. It's like too heavy, right? Too heavy, too egotistical. But again, Scorpio ascendant. Liz Green wrote a lot of books. Very popular astrologer. Notable American. She's written several astrology books based on Jungian psychology, psychological astrology. All astrology is psychological if we're applying it to people. Some is more so than others, though. All right. She's co-director of Astro.com, the best astrological website. Okay. Scorpio rising. Let's see here. So Libra stellium with Mars, ascendant Lord Mars. So her ascendant Lord is not in good dignity, but it's conjunct Neptune, Chiron, Jupiter, Venus. Venus is in good dignity. 11th house. Right. Sun conjunct the MC along with Mercury, Virgo. Mercury's exalted and in domicile. So very strong 10th house and 9th house as well. Very serious, heavy duty. Leo, very, this combination brings tremendous self-confidence, potentially. I mean, you have to overcome a certain Saturnian negativity, but that Leo, right, and that Pluto is just like unstoppable. Saturn just kind of crystallizes it. And then we got the North Node in North Node Uranus in Gemini, and that's actually in the 7th house, not the 8th house. Moon's ruling the 8th, and Moon is conjunct the South Node in the 1st, right? So 8th Lord in the 1st house. This is actually the 8th whole sign house, but because the ascendant is such late degree, I'm really saying this is 7th house. I look at both, and I kind of estimate in my head how close it is to the cusp, the signs, and this is 7th house. So I'm just clarifying that, but it is conjunct. North Node is conjunct Uranus, and so that's going to be something Uranian. It's either going to be music, politics, social issues, comedy, or something like astrology. But it could be other things as well. But anyway. Yeah. What else are we? Yeah, I mean, very prominent career, very prominent aspirations for the career, natural, dignified career. Mercury is here, even though it's in the 9th quadrant, it's still reaching that ascendant or MC and dignifying it. See, Saturn's ruling the 3rd cusp, conjunct Pluto in the 9th. 9th is publishing. Saturn's not in great dignity here, but Pluto is very, very driven. And then Libra, this very strong Libra stellium in the 11th house, popular. 11th house shows popularity, potentially, career success, popularity. So going to be very popular, especially with Venus in Libra in the 11th, and Jupiter, Chiron. Mars, not so much, but Neptune also helps. South Node Moon, especially if it's the 8th ruler, shows incredibly sharp mind and psychic. This is a very psychic combination. A lot of psychics have South Node Moon conjunctions. Yeah, very interesting. When young, mentally unstable, also Moon opposite Uranus, that's going to be crazy, kind of crazy train. But very great for things like abstract thinking, higher mindedness, astrology, understanding like very abstract ideas. Everything's direct except for the nodes. Amazing. Usually when planets are direct, these people are much more conventional, but South Node Moon is not conventional. And Ascendant Lord conjunct Chiron is also not conventional. Robert Hands, a very well-known, respected astrologer. American astrologer, author, translator, lecturer, BA in history from Brandeis University, and did graduate work in the history of science at Princeton University. Currently studying at Catholic University for his PhD in medieval history. So he's also a historian, I guess. He began studying astrology at 17 in 1960. His father taught him the basics. He was specialized in heliocentric. Okay, well, whatever. Adapting using astrological cycles for gain in the financial and stock markets, financial astrology. Okay, so automatically, when you're talking about 2nd house or history, I'm thinking about the 2nd house, and he has Pluto in the 2nd house, right? And then he's got North Node and Chiron in the 2nd whole sign house, but 3rd cusp. So definitely, and then Jupiter, exalted Jupiter in the 1st house in Cancer. So he's a very natural teacher. Jupiter is ruling the 6th, got Sun, Mercury, and Venus in the 6th. The 6th house is a very academic house, by the way. Right. So for studying and being very sort of technical, analytical, academic, very strong for the 6th house. We got a Moon and Mars conjunction in the 5th house. That's not great, especially for the Moon. Mars is strong, Moon is weak. Mars can actually, Moon is his ascendant lord. Mars is 11th cusp, and it's not really ruling a cusp here, but it is the 5th whole sign house. So, Mars is in domicile. Moon's the ascendant lord. His ascendant, though, is protected by Jupiter in Cancer, even though it's retrograde. But still, there's some damage here to his health, I would say. His physicality. Perhaps he was attacked. Mars can actually mean physical violence. But in any case, I don't know because I don't know enough about him. But let's keep going. Why astrology? Well, South Node in Aquarius, ninth cusp. Saturn is ruling the eighth. That's in the 12th conjunct Uranus in Gemini. Trine Neptune. So I mean, ascendant lord in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio. That would be one of the main things, right? Fifth house in Scorpio. 11th, Mars ruling the 11th, conjunct the ascendant lord Moon. Jupiter ruling the 6th and the 1st. So very academic. Jupiter ruling the MC in Cancer. So Cancer is a water sign. So trine Scorpio, and Pisces. So definitely lends itself to that. North Node Chiron. Right. So and Chiron was a teacher, a healer, an astrologer. But Pluto in the second, that's also going to be very prominent for this. The dignities here. So Mars obviously is the strongest sign. That's in domicile in Scorpio in the fifth. Fifth is education. It's entertainment, it's fun and games, it's children, but it's also education. Jupiter retro shows that he's not going to be orthodox religious. Saturn, he's not going to follow the rules. Uranus, he's going to be very rebellious. Pluto, even more so on a deep psychological level. Yeah, really here we see a lot of astrology, South Node and Aquarius. Even though it's ninth cusp, it's still eighth whole sign house, but ninth will still play a role. But obviously, even though he's a well-known, respected astrologer, he's still very interested in history, which is not astrology. History is not astrology. I don't need to say that. It's just not. But he does have Neptune in Libra in the fourth, and considering that his father taught him astrology, that's also relevant. Neptune is trine Uranus, so that also translates. And there's a septile with Mars and Neptune as well. So interesting. All right, definitely very academic. Jupiter would represent the, going for the high degrees. Sagittarius, rather. Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Sag. Mercury is not great dignity here. Mercury's ruling the 12th and the 4th. So perhaps creativity is not as abundant in Robert Hand. In any case, keep going. Dennis Harness. American professional astrologer, author, and psychologist. Okay, Virgo ascendant, so very analytical, right? Definitely need the kind of Virgo mercurial mind for reading charts. There is that kind of hard-nosed, scientific, earthy, practical side of astrology that's necessary. You can be you can have full faith in astrology but not understand it at all, and you just won't be a very good astrologer. You just love it, but you won't be good at it. So we got a 12th house, strong 12th house with Moon, Jupiter, Pluto. And it's good that Jupiter is in between the Moon and Pluto, because Moon Pluto is not good. Well, Pluto does carry that psychology, that um psychology and astrology influence, the occult, the deep diving quality. All right, so that's in the 12th house, 12th house for secrets. Uranus on the 12th cusp, 0 degrees Leo. That's pretty strong here. Mercury's in Libra. Mercury's the ascendant lord. It's in Libra. Very strong first house in Virgo. Venus in Virgo. Venus and Sun are both square the nodes, which is interesting. Yeah, Venus is not very good dignity here. It's not retrograde, but it is in Virgo, combust the Sun. So that Venus is the MC Lord also, and the second Lord. So I don't really know anything about Dennis Harness, except that his second Lord is damaged, and as well as his MC Lord, Venus. Mutual reception. Well, that's good, because Mercury is in Venus sign. Venus is in Mercury sign. So that's actually going to help Venus out a lot. It helps Mercury out a lot. Mercury's the ascendant lord. So, yeah, speaking is okay. Neptune's in the second. That's not great for finances, but I mean, it could be okay. It's not retrograde, and Mercury's here, so Mercury's very logical, brings some logic to this Neptune, but Neptune's going to definitely space out this Mercury, make it more visionary, creative, imaginary, also intuitive, spiritual oriented. So he's tuning into that side of things, tuning into the clouds, subconscious, also the 12th house here. So he's got that, the very analytical plus the mystical, spiritual. But the Chiron Uranus direct opposition, it's quite painful, because Uranus is so Chiron's retrograde in Aquarius, so this is a very weird Chiron, right? Retrograde is going to be even more so, because it's just not natural, it's not flowing properly, it's just kind of going back on itself, like, am I okay, am I okay, am I okay, am I okay? And that just kind of, it gets very mental, when you're constantly retrograding on yourself, right? Especially with something with a Chiron opposite Uranus. Uranus is very shocking. It's not very sensitive. Well, it is very sensitive, but its effects are not very sensitive. Like a bolt of lightning, it's not subtle. You know what I mean? But Uranus itself can be very sensitive. So there's some issues there, I would say. Also, especially around health, right? That could be influencing his health. Not very good, but I don't know. Let's see. Mars ruling the 8th cusp. Mars right in the first house. Conjunct the ascendant, conjunct the sun. So that's very strong. Mars also ruling the 3rd cusp and the 4th cusp and dispositing Saturn. Saturn's ruling the 5th and 6th. So, yeah, definitely some strong mystical, astrological influences. You got that Virgo for the analysis. You got a lot of mysticism and spirituality, 12th house, Uranus, outer planets, all that. North Node in Sag in the 4th. Working from home, being philosophical, that sort of thing. But South Node in the 10th can show early success, career success, especially in Gemini. That would indicate as a writer, as a communicator, right? And then Mars is in fine dignity in the 1st house. That's the 3rd lord. Saturn's in Scorpio in the 3rd house. So definitely writing, definitely could apply to this guy. Yeah, Mercury, Venus, and everything's direct except for Chiron. So he's just a bit weird. That's all. Johannes Kepler. He's an old astrologer, one of the originals. German Lutheran mathematician, astronomer, and astrologer, key figure in the 17th century astronomical revolution. He's best known for his eponymous laws of planetary motion, codified by later astronomers based on his work Astronomy Nova, Harmonicus Mundi, Epitome of Copernican Astronomy. Before Kepler, planets' paths were computed by combinations of circular motion of celestial orbits. After Kepler's, astronomers shifted their attention from orbs to orbit path that could be represented mathematically as an ellipse. Kepler's laws also provided one of the foundations for Isaac Newton's theory of universal gravitation. So incredible contributions to astronomy and astrology and science in general. Neptune right on the ascendant. So this guy's a mystic, head in the clouds, very visionary, very imaginative, right? Retrograde, right? Definitely going to think outside the box or imagine outside the box. Square Pluto, Jupiter, Pisces. Jupiter's in good dignity. Jupiter conjunct this 10th house, right? So now Pisces is very head in the clouds as well, very Neptunian. Jupiter is also domiciled in Pisces, wise naturally. Pluto, very obsessive. So this is kind of what I could call like the megalomaniac kind of combination, because Pluto is so obsessive with Jupiter's philosophy, so their philosophy of life becomes incredibly obsessive, or their obsession turns into philosophy. Their philosophy is backed by obsession, so they can really push very hard as far as what they believe in, and this can be very destructive depending on how it goes. You know, what sign, house, aspects, all that. But this is in Pisces, you know, so it's going to be very sort of imaginative, liberal, expansive, compassionate. So that's good. Chiron conjunct the MC in Aquarius. And again, this man is not a wounded healer. That does not describe his career. It is Chiron as something outside the box, something very weird. Also in Aquarius, it's going to magnify the weirdness, but it's going to lend itself to astrology, right? Because Chiron, again, was a wise man, a teacher, a healer, an astrologer. So that's bringing out that quality. And there's no hard aspects to Chiron, so there's no reason to assume that this guy is going to be wounded in some way in his public image, or that he's a healer or anything like that. I mean, potentially, yes, but not necessarily. Okay. Mercury conjunct Uranus and Sun in the 8th house, and Venus in Capricorn, and South Node in Aquarius, 9th house. So that's very strong for astrology. 8th house, secrets. Mercury is the ascendant lord, and you can see it's in the 7th quadrant, but it's conjunct Uranus, and the flow is towards that 8th house cusp, 8th house whole sign, 8th whole sign house, right? So that's very strong towards the 8th house. Saturn is in Scorpio on the 6th cusp. Again, that lends itself to astrology, very, very much so. Saturn is the 8th lord in the 6th house in Scorpio. So studying astrology, 6th house, you know, on a daily basis, working with astrology. Mars not good dignity here in the 5th. So it's the 11th lord and the 6th lord. So oh, but it's dignifying Uranus through a square and Mercury, because it's exalting Capricorn. So, you know, something good. North Node conjunct the 3rd cusp in Leo. So intellect, you know, for science also, that's excellent, right? Mercury conjunct Uranus, it just in general is going to be very brilliant. Moon's in the 12th in Gemini. So moon in the 12th in Gemini is going to be, or any planet in Gemini in the 12th is going to, it's going to have a sort of like Sherlock Holmes effect, because Sherlock Holmes had a whole Gemini 12th house. I want to say stellium, I can't remember exactly, but it was very prominent in his chart. That's that secret, and you know, the bringing the analytical mind, the logical mind into secret places, right? That's essentially Sherlock Holmes. So detective. Johannes Kepler was somewhat of a detective. At least his moon at least as far as his moon goes. That's hidden secrets. It's similar to, Gemini in the 8th house, Virgo in the 8th house, Virgo in the 12th house, that sort of thing. Neptune is his only retrograde planet. Well, besides the nodes. But it's right on his ascendant. So definitely somebody who's not going to follow along with the crowd. Lee Lehman. I know nothing about this person, but she is an astrologer. She's an American author, astrologer, and lecturer. Okay. I think I picked her because like I was looking through popular astrology books and she was one of them. Yeah. Anyways. The good thing about a lot of astrologers is that they have their birth times, and if they don't have their birth times, they get it rectified. So a lot of astrologers know their birth times because they want to know their charts, obviously. So Leo ascendant with Mars conjunct Leo, Pluto conjunct Mars, Venus, and then South Node. So very strong 12th house, first house. All right, moving to the first house. That's Mars and Pluto together. It's fierce. That's very scorpionic. And then Sun conjunct Mercury and Virgo in the first house. Also Moon and Virgo, and they're moving into the second house. Moon is clearly in the second house, right? So lecture, as far as speaker, teacher, that works as well. Jupiter is ruling the 8th. That's in the 11th in Gemini. So poor dignity, but Gemini is very clever. And so for the 8th Lord to be in Gemini, that's kind of that sort of that same thing. The logical mind is going into secrets, things like that, which is very good for astrology. North Node in Aquarius in the 6th, academics and abstract thinking. Saturn conjunct Neptune in the 3rd in Libra. Definitely good for really bringing that imagination, that creative imagination into something solid. This, so good for writing, like being able to tap into like this very obscure, abstract, illusionary, Neptunian fantasy, bringing it down to something real. And then it's tying in Uranus, even though it's a square. It's also tying in Jupiter with the trine. Jupiter's the 8th Lord. So, writing about astrology, that's going to be good. And then the Pluto influence as well. So all 3 outer planets, strong influence. Chiron is trine the sun. That's excellent. Again, everything's direct except for Chiron. Chiron's retrograde in the 5th house. So maybe some issues around school. She was weird in school, perhaps, but not bad. It's not really bad. I mean, it's a little there's a sesqui square to Mars and the Sun, but anyway, let's keep going. David Lashinsky. This guy is a very young astrologer. And I included a few youthful young astrologers because I needed the numbers. So he's not in the same league as all the other ones, but it's good to look at different people, different combinations, and I wish I had more, honestly. Charts, astrologers charts to look at, but he's very active in astrology. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of things he says, but definitely very passionate about astrology. So Aries ascendant, Saturn in the 1st. Saturn's ruling the MC and the 11th house. So yeah, MC in the 1st. He's really he's not afraid to put himself out in the public, but it's not good dignity. I mean, Saturn is in Aries. Saturn in Aries is kind of like a dictator's Saturn. So not really a huge fan of this combination because he's coming off like the authority, but it's not in good dignity. Let's see, Pluto is trying the ascendant. That's really strong. for astrology. Sun, Mercury, Gemini, third house. So he loves to write, obviously, and this is very, very strong for writing. Mercury's in domicile, right, and prolific writing, right? Mars, the ascendant lord, that's in Virgo, conjunct the North Node. There's a bit of egotism when your North Node is conjunct the ascendant lord. Yeah, similar to North Node conjunct the Sun, a little bit different, but definitely, especially as he gets older. Yeah, there's a lot of maturity is required for this, because this can bring out some negative behaviors, especially when young. The nodes in contact with ascendant, descendant, sun, moon, are very difficult when young. They take a lot of maturity. Narcissism, things like that can come. I mean, Virgo is so modest. Sixth house is very hardworking, so there's going to be a conflict here. Too much confidence, too much sort of hubris, but at the same time, this struggle to keep it under wraps. Sorry, David. Just calling it like I see it. I have North Node in the first, so, but I'm 47, so it's a little different for me. I'm old enough now that I'm on the other side of things. All right, Uranus is in Aquarius along with Jupiter in the 11th house, Neptune at the anaretic degree of Capricorn, 10th, 11th. But this is very strong for astrology as well, right? Uranus is square moon, moon's in Scorpio in the 8th, also very strong. Moon in Scorpio is not very good square Uranus. So there could be some mental health issues, mental health disturbances. Again, especially when young, but Uranus square the moon, where moon's in Scorpio, is just going to make this guy a bit nutty, right? But good at astrology. Also, this Pluto trine, right? Very analytical, North Node, Mars, Virgo, and very fighty as well, right? And then Mars, which is the ascendant lord, is trine Neptune, and yeah, I mean, I almost want to bring up the things that he said that I disagree with, but that would be too much of a tangent and it would take too much time, so I'm not going to. And I don't want to single him out. Because lots of people say stuff I disagree with. So there. All right, his sun is square the nodes, and his sun's ruling the 5th house in the 3rd. So there's going to be a lot of attention, tension, I should say, around his sun sign, sun in Gemini. It's just going to really activate it and make it more fighty, bold, potentially aggressive, because it's dealing with two squares, and it's not connecting to either, although they're both the North Node and the Sun are both disposited by Mercury. So it'd be better actually when he's older. Right now he's very head in the clouds, mystical. He's going to be much more logical as he ages, which is good because he needs it. All right. Jupiter's retro, so religion is not going to be his. It's not going to be orthodox. Uranus retro, very rebellious, and very strong Mercury. So very smart, but needs some time. All right. Let's keep going. Caitlin Mara, another very young astrologer, also very, very bright. She's also a very good writer. Writes about astrology, has an astrology group, very logical. Scorpio stellium with North Node in Scorpio, right? 6th house. 6th house is going to be more academic, regular publications, that sort of thing. Gemini ascendant, Sun conjunct Sun Cazimi Mercury, right? Sun exactly. It's highly intellectual, okay, right? And that's the trine to the ascendant, essentially, right? Not exact, but 5th house. So very airy, very intellectual, right? And then MC, also the 3rd leg of basically practically a grand air trine, right? So very highly intellectual type person with very strong Scorpio influence. But I know her personally. She works with kids, and then she also does astrology. So that would be the 5th house influence, ascendant and sun, in the 5th house in Libra, right? So that's very clear. Let's see. Saturn is, she's got Neptune and Uranus conjunct in Capricorn in the 8th house. Excellent for astrology, right? Capricorn, very dry, hard, practical, ambitious, and then these outer planets will, connect the mind to the high realm. So in the 8th house, this can be very good for astrology, right? Then Saturn's in the 10th, 8th lord in the 10th. Career as an astrologer, definitely, right? 9th lord in the 10th. So 8th and 9th lord in the 10th in Pisces. So that, yeah, definitely relates to astrology a lot. And then this really nice trine between Chiron and Neptune and Uranus. That's going to help out a lot. Chiron was a teacher, a healer, and an astrologer. Chiron square the ascendant, this exact square, definitely makes her a little weird. And I'm not just saying that because it's here in her astrology. She's a little weird. No offense, Caitlin. It just is. That's okay. We all have Chiron. I have it on the descendant. It definitely makes me a little weird. Definitely makes my communication with others a little weird. Mars, the 11th lord in the 3rd. So that's also good for writing about astrology. Mars and Leo, passionate. All right. Mercury, Venus, Saturn. Some good I like to see retrogrades. It shows that a person's going to be more, turning in on themselves, questioning themselves, questioning others, questioning society, questioning life, right? Double checking their work, triple checking, being rebellious, going against the grain, being unconventional. All right. Raymond A. Merriman, American author and astrologer. Okay, really elaborate, bro. I could have told you that. Anyway. All right. Virgo ascendant. A lot of Virgo ascendants, reason being Virgo and Scorpio a lot of times because the analytical mind, very necessary. A 6th and 8th house, right? All right. Mercury and Sag conjunct South Node. So this person is going to be unconventional because the South Node is conjunct their ascendant lord. So it means they're moving towards, in this case, Uranus, but away from their ascendant lord, which is away from themselves. So just like, I don't care about me, sort of like South Node conjunct Sun. It's like, I don't care about me. I just need, I'm more concerned about whatever I'm concerned about, my work, Uranus, the ascendant lord, in poor dignity as well. But this Uranus is great. Mercury and Sag, opposite Uranus and Gemini. So Mercury is not, Mercury is the ascendant lord. It's in poor dignity. It's conjunct the South Node in the 3rd house. So he can write books, especially when he's young. Well, when he's old too, but especially when he's young. And then, dignifying this Uranus, and then Mercury and Uranus, great combination. Really makes the mind really brilliant. North Node in Gemini. Uranus and Gemini. So yeah, that's very strong. Sun, Mars, Moon in Capricorn in the 4th. Again, this is not good for the Moon. Moon is not good in Capricorn. It's in detriment. Mars is very strong. Yeah, Mars can bust the Sun, but this Mars and Sun can team up and beat up on this Moon, which is not very good. This could relate to his mother. This could relate to groups and networks, communities, because it's 11th house lord. This can relate to women in general, right? So I don't know Raymond Merriman at all, but in any case, Chiron, Jupiter, Venus in Scorpio in the second house, 3rd whole sign house, conjuncting the 3rd cusp, so 2nd and 3rd. So definitely for writing about astrology, Jupiter and Venus in conjunct Uranus. That's actually quite good. Uranus would be in the 8th position from Jupiter, Venus. So for astrology, right? That's not bad. For other things, it may not be very good. Relationships, sudden, explosive, sudden beginnings, sudden and endings. Jupiter's ruling the seventh. Venus also significator relationships. So, and then also that 1946 year, a lot of astrologers were born then. You got that Pluto, Saturn in Leo. This is retrograde. It's in the 11th house. Deeply, deeply serious, but deep diving as well for research, for scientific thinking as far as astrology goes. Yeah, great. But I would not want this combination. It's too heavy. It's too serious. I would not be happy with it. But Chiron's also square the Saturn. Not great for Chiron. This could be wounded. Could be speech, self-worth. But Jupiter and Venus are also there, but it is Scorpio, so it's a mixed bag, right? Neptune in the first. So we see very strong, connection with the outer planets, Scorpio, Aquarius, 11th house, and not Aquarius, but 11th house. So some combinations is what I'm trying to point out. Yeah. Writing, Ascendant Lord in the third house, South Node. Oh, Saturn, Sun, mutual reception. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's fifth and sixth Lord. The Sun is in the fourth, and these guys are in the 11th, and Sun's ruling the 12th. So it's interesting. I mean, if we just look at the position, then it's fourth and 11th. But if we look at the rulership, then it's 12th and 5th. So I don't know enough about him to really say how this is manifesting, except that this is good for both Saturn and the Sun and the houses they rule and the houses they're in. So 4th and 5th, 11th and 12th. And that's it's good for a lot of things, but astrology included. All right, let's keep going. Dane Rudger. And there's going to be a lot of astrologers who I did not get their charts for. Either I couldn't or I just didn't for whatever reason. In any case, couldn't find it. Daniel, author, modernist composer, humanistic astrology. He was the pioneer of modern transpersonal astrology. He had a severe illness at the age of 12. Surgery disabled him. He turned to music and intellectual development to compensate for his lack of physical agility. Studied at Sorbonne. Early adventures into philosophy and his association with the artistic community of Paris led to his conviction that all existence is cyclical in character. Okay. Sagittarius ascendant, Jupiter and Gemini. So his Jupiter is in poor dignity. That accounts for his physical disability. When the ascendant Lord is in poor dignity, the body itself is going to be weak, sick. The person maybe gets fat or they die young. This, I've seen again and again. This is what it represents, right? Body's in poor dignity. Then you'd also have to look at the aspects, but here, so poor dignity, body, but he's either here to help people or hurt people. Obviously, he's helping people because I already described it. Jupiter and poor dignity represents the relationships. Jupiter is a natural teacher. So poor relationships mean that he attracts sick people, he helps them. Sick or weak people, right? And then Pluto conjunct Mars and Neptune in the sixth quadrant, seventh whole sign house, with Mars ruling the 11th and 12th cusp and fourth cusp. So early on, he's going into health issues with his weakened, right? Fourth Lord in the sixth house. So academics as well as health issues. Pluto, Neptune. Mars is physical body. So there's physical deformity here. But this is excellent for studying astrology as well, because Pluto, Neptune, and Scorpio, Gemini. We've got South Node in Virgo. Again, the health issues early on in life. North Node in Pisces, Aries Sun. So the Sun's exalted. Moon's ruling the 8th. Moon's in Aquarius in the 2nd, so that's actually very good. Third whole sign house, but Mercury's not in good dignity. But this is excellent for astrology, this moon. So definitely astrology makes him happy. He's trying the Jupiter. North Node and Mercury and Pisces in the 3rd house. So Pisces definitely can relate to astrology very well. Saturn and Uranus in Scorpio in the 11th house. So that's very much related to astrology as well. Especially the Uranus in Scorpio retrograde. Well, retrograde or not, retrograde is just going to be more rebellious. Saturn retrograde is going to be disregarding the law, the authorities, going against all that. It's trine Mercury, so that's good. Saturn's ruling 2nd and 3rd whole sign house, 2nd house and 3rd house. So mostly 2nd, really. So speaking about astrology in the 11th house and career success, Venus is the MC Lord, that's in the 4th. So interesting. It's an Aries, it's not good dignity. So his career definitely had some issues, ups and downs, twists and turns, but eventually made its way to astrology. So it's disposited by Mars, academics, so Pluto, psychology, Neptune, cycles, Uranus. Right, that's where both MC Lord and Uranus are disposited by this Mars, conjunct Pluto, Neptune in the 6th. So that's where the energy's going. Yeah. Checking the dignities here. Don't see anything interesting. Jupiter, Mercury, mutual reception. Yeah. Okay, so that's going to help out his ascendant Lord a lot, but I mean, the degrees are really off, so not as much as we might have hoped for. But Moon Jupiter is good. And this would be 3rd and 7th. So other people, communication, teaching, communicating. Pisces, right? Because it's Pisces, it's a water house, so secrets, hidden things. Definitely relates to astrology. I already looked at Carmen Turner Scott, not sure how you pronounce it. And last one is me. I looked at my chart yesterday, but that was in regards to the astrological method that I'm proposing of self, other, and parents. But this is just in regards to astrology. So Scorpio ascendant with Uranus retrograde right in the ascendant, North Node in Scorpio, obviously. Mars conjunct the MC. That's not astrology, but this is more like video. I love to be seen and heard because here I am sitting on my royal throne at the top of the chart, nobody above me. I'm at the highest, and yes, my Virgo moon and my Saturn conjunct Mars wants to keep me humble and modest, so I have to try to do that, even though I don't want to, but I have to. That's the conflict, right? Virgo's like, no, I'm not that great, and Saturn's like, keep your head down, work harder, you struggle more, right? But Mars and Leo conjunct the MC is like, I'm king already, can't you see it? Why don't you recognize me? I'm the king. So anyway. And Mars is dignifying the North Node. It's square the ascendant. So there's a lot of anger here especially when Mars is square the nodes, there can be a lot of anger, especially if it's very prominent like it is mine. But Mars dignifying the North Node. So that's pretty good. Sun and Venus are in the 8th house. They're trine Pluto in the 12th. Pluto in the 12th also excellent for things like astrology, right? Very difficult in other ways, but Pluto in the 12th. Venus is dignifying this Pluto. Venus rules Libra. Sun is dignifying Mars by sextile. Venus and Mars perfectly sextile. So 8th house. Mercury is ruling the 8th. In mutual reception with Venus. So Venus and Mercury's sign, Mercury and Venus's sign. So 7th lord in the 8th, 8th lord in the 7th. So I bring people into the world of astrology. I bring astrology into the world of the people. Do you see that? South node Jupiter is natural, kind of earthy, grounded, practical wisdom, right? South node Jupiter. I had plenty of teachers when I was young. Now that I'm older, now that I'm past 42 and my North node's activated, I can't have a teacher. Like it's literally like an energy, it's like two poles of a magnet. That's one of the things you'll notice with South node conjunct Jupiter is that they pretty much have to teach themselves. Or if they do have a teacher, they're still teaching themselves. Because they've already done the teacher thing. South node shows what we've had enough of. So if I have South node Jupiter, I've had enough of don't come at me and be like, oh, you need to study with a teacher. These teachers are not my teachers. My teacher is invisible. My teacher is spiritual. I mean that literally. I get taught by voices in my head. That's how I learn astrology. I'm not trying to sound crazy, but I mean, maybe that has to do with Neptune opposite Venus and Sun. But that also is tapping me into. So I've contact with all three outer planets. They're all three retrogrades. They're all in self houses. Pluto's in the subconscious and Libra. Uranus is conjunct the ascendant, and Neptune is in the second house of speech and values and knowledge. Knowledge is a resource, right? Also physical resources. Also, with Neptune retrograde, the retrograde in the second house is also going to influence my expression. It's going to make it a little bit not as smooth, right? Chiron in the 7th, also teacher, healer, astrologer. And Chiron definitely describes my relationships. Like all my relationships have been very weird. They've been strange. Can't help it. It is what it is. Moon's in Virgo in the 11th house, very analytical. And there's also a trine between Jupiter and Mercury. And there's a mutual reception between Mercury and Jupiter. A very good one because they're both exalted in each other's signs. So that's 7th and 11th. Remember, Mercury has the Venus mutual reception. So it's got two mutual receptions. And it's very slow. My Mercury is at 17 degrees per day, 17 minutes, I should say. So it's almost stationary. It went station 3 days prior to my birth. So my Mercury is pretty good, right? It's got the Virgo moon trine. So 11th house, right? Aquarius influence, trine Mercury. So I can express my heart through my Mercury to people. I can also express my heart through my Jupiter, through the wisdom. And this Jupiter, moon Jupiter is also quite good because moon and Jupiter really like each other. And, moon is exalted in Taurus. So that's very good for Jupiter. Not so good for moon. Jupiter harms moon actually because Virgo is not a sign, a dignified sign for Jupiter, right? So sometimes certain things can, make me unhappy about, my Jupiterian stuff, whatever. Second house, 5th house issues, but that's okay. South node Jupiter is always why I'm like, going off about like whatever practical, earthy, grounded wisdom I am going off about. There's a septile between Neptune and Jupiter, which is also really nice because a triseptile, I should say. It's actually like an exact one because I've checked. It's exact, and that translates Neptune and Jupiter, the two planets that rule Pisces and higher wisdom. It connects them in a very spiritual connection. I'm very spiritual. What can I say? People cannot often relate to my spirituality. Mars, my ascendant lord, is also perfectly trine Neptune. And so Venus, you got Venus sextile, and then Neptune, Mars, and then Sun's also playing into that. So there's a lot of harmony there between my Sun, ascendant lord. And then there's a division between, there's a certain connection between, I guess, Mercury unites my Sun, Venus, and Moon. But these are square to each other. But in any case, yeah, you can see my outer planets are retro. My Mercury is quite slow. My Mercury has 2 mutual receptions, so it gets pretty strong points there. And yeah, very strong astrological influence there. And that's pretty much it, guys. I think I tapped everything, at least on my chart. I don't know what else to say. Let's see. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Focusing the camera. There we go. It annoys me. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share if you haven't already. And book a reading with me, macroastrology.com. I hope you found this valuable. I hope you found it interesting. I tried to point out all the really most obvious indicators of what it takes to be an astrologer. The outer planets, Pluto, Uranus primarily, but Pluto and Neptune definitely play a big role in it. And the signs they rule and the houses they're associated with, right? So obviously Aquarius, 11th, Scorpio, 8th, and Neptune, Pisces, 12th. And then Chiron can definitely play a role in it. Jupiter plays a role in it, but not as much. I mean, let's be honest, Jupiter, 9th house, that's not so much about astrology as it is about philosophy. And again, like I said, you can get all the astrologers in the world, put them in a room, they'll separate into various camps about astrology, but they'll all come together about astrology. Bring up the question of God and religion and spirituality, they're all going to be completely dispersed. So 9th house is not it. It's, I mean, I'm saying that with a little bit of an attitude because it kind of pisses me off when these astrologers are way too bookish. They learn astrology from books and they do not connect it to real life. And that's where Taurus excels in its grounding and its practicality, right? So that's it for me. Like, it's got to be practical. It's got to be grounded. It's got to be observational, or it doesn't count. Like, I'm really ready to fight over this. Like, and by fight, I mean punching people in the face. I'm joking. I don't punch anyone in the face. It's funny to say anyway. So, I'm not. I'm just proverbially gonna punch people in the face. All right. That's my Mars and Leo conjunct MC and Saturn. Anyway, guys, nobody take offense. I'm just having fun, right? So I have a very aggressive style of fun. It's also my Uranus conjunct the ascendant in Scorpio. But anyways, I will see you guys again soon. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks. Bye.